Hello, friends. Welcome back. I am on the just about the home stretch of this painting of my granddaughter Lake. You can watch me do the early stages of this painting uh, earlier today at Daily Art Adventure 493 A, B, and C. Um, so I'm not going to repeat and tell you everything I did. Then you can go back and watch it. If I'm going to repeat and tell you everything I did, then you can go back and watch it if you're interested. I am Now, I started out matching color on this print, and I'm still using it somewhat, but I've moved over for the details in particular to my phone. Again, one of the delightful serendipitous advantages of a smartphone is it is so good for matching color. Now, again, forgive me, so good for matching color. Now, again, forgive me. I'm a Mac guy on everything except my phone. And here's part of the reason I don't do iPhone is because an iPhone, at least up until now, can't or couldn't do this. There's the photograph that I took. Okay. Let's see how far I can. First of all, here's what an iPhone can do. That's the photo, and that's maybe not even that far. That's the blow up of the photo. That's as far as you can go on an iPhone, is about like this. But watch the Droid. Okay, so I'm filling the screen all the way across with two teeth. Got it? So anyway, this is such a delightful tool for matching color. That's all I'm going to say about that. So I'm using partly now the photograph here and partly, um, my goodness, it is so much better. The phone is so much better. I'm seeing things in the phone that there's no way I saw on the cheap print. For instance, when I just blew it up right that second to tell you about it, I saw this faint blue tint on the side of Lakey's face. I hadn't even seen there before. So let me try to match that color. Now the only thing you can't do with a phone is you can't really put paint on it like that unless you can get the light just right. But generally speaking, that's quite a trick. But that's pretty close to the right color right there. A little bit of blue. Oh, a little bit lighter. Likewise, a little bit of green on the pale side of these fingers. I'm seeing color so much better here than I was on my print. Let's look now on, down here on her arm to see, since we are clearly seeing cool colors. Yep, there's a cool color here as well. Now, if I may, here's again, I'm reflecting my level of expertise. By that I mean not extreme. I'm not, my expertise in portraiture is not extreme, is what I'm trying to say. But I'm reflecting where I am with my journey. Let me try to put this into words. Again, Mark Carter, who I've referred to at least twice already today, he makes a very good point. He says one of the most common mistakes, he says the most common mistake that a early portrait painter makes is over exaggerating shifts in value. We see a shift in value on the photograph and we exaggerate it. Now, and he's so right. He is so right about that. And I've really internalized that. He has helped me with that one comment. He has helped me with my portrait work in the last couple of years. But when I judge shows, so again, when I'm seeing student work out there in the world, actually the very opposite is true. Almost universally, students don't have enough contrast in the light and dark side of their portrait work. So I think that Mark is Like after an artist learns to have, this is so weird, but there's got to be some way to reconcile, because I know what he says is true, because I've fallen into that trap myself, over exaggerating um, the um, contrast. And yet I also know, because I see it all the time, students habitually, continually under emphasize the light and dark shade sides of a figure. So in between there somewhere is the truth. Um, but here's what I'm going to say. Mark Carter is right. Be careful not to over exaggerate value shifts, like from the light side of the nose to the dark side. Or value, I'm gonna have to, because most students don't do enough of that. But okay, I'm just gonna go with that. He's right. I know he's right, because I've made that mistake many times myself. But if you want to look like a good portrait painter, and if you're doing portraits, who doesn't want to look like, you want to look like you know what you're doing? That's just another way of saying you want to do as good a job as you can. Okay. You do not want to over exaggerate value shifts and over contrast, like cranking up the contrast knob on your painting. But you do, yes, ironically, you do want to over crank, at least in my opinion, the color shifts. Now, again, Mark Carter does not do that very much. He tries to remain very, very, very true to the color of his model, or more precisely, the color of his photograph. But in that regard, I think his impulse is slightly, forgive me, I've said all kinds of good things about Mark, even just today. But in that regard, his impulse is slightly misguided. I think, for instance, there's some person I follow on Instagram named Steve Forster, Steve Forst, not Forrest, but Forster, I think, like Foster, but with an R in. I think that's right. And I follow him because his portraits are spectacular, and he exaggerates color. I think is a good example of exaggerated color. So that's all I'm going to say. I think that exaggerating color is a good idea, but exaggerating contrast is not. I agree with Mark Carter about that. We don't want over contrasted. Okay, now I've still got quite a bit of work to do here. Let's zero in on one eye. So look, here's why I like my Droid. Look at how big that eye. The entire screen with just one eye. Again, here's how big it was to start out with. Okay. Whoops. There's how big it. There's the original photograph, and I can fill the entire screen with nothing but one eye, which really helps you see colors and so forth. I'm going to give you another tip right now about, and again, I'm just reflecting my level of expertise, which is middle-ish. I'm not extreme, I'm not low, I'm not high, I'm kind of in the middle, in my humble opinion. I've never heard anybody else say this. Maybe they all say it and I just haven't heard them. Goodness knows I haven't taken very many portrait classes, but I've never heard anybody say this, or in print, on video, or anything. And it is this. In order to achieve a realistic layering portraits, a really good tip, this is not universal, and this is opposite to what I do when I'm doing landscapes, where I do the tree and then the sky on top of the tree. In portraits, no, follow. You want to paint the furthermost eye and move forward. So let's take an eye, for instance. Let's take an eye. What is the farthest away object in this scene? The answer is everything that's inside her eyelid. The whites and the iris and the pupil. But the reflections on the pupil are this side, right? They're on the pupil. So follow your intuition. In other words, don't paint the eyelash first, because they're the farthest thing toward the viewer. They're sticking out the farthest. Paint those last. And then the eyelid is in between. So anyway, let's just go ahead and do it. And yes, I'm going to use some smaller brushes for this operation. I should have picked up my brushes earlier. whenever possible, now, and again, reflecting my level where I'm at, whenever possible, use bristle brushes, but don't hesitate to use, that handle is warped. Don't hesitate to use sable brushes when you need to, okay? Okay, so the part of this scene, I'm calling this a scene, that is the furthest away from the viewer is not only the cornea, but is, because it's rounded, so the middle of it is closest to us, the top and the bottom are furthest away. So that's just exactly what I'm talking about. Paint the top and the bottom first. In other words, I'm painting the shady part of cornea first. I'll go ahead and do both eyes. So what I'm painting right now is not eyelashes. Do you understand? I'm painting the shady part of the cornea. By the way, I really wish I had a tool here to hold this phone for me. I need to upgrade my equipment so I don't have to hold my phone. So I'm wiping off just with a paper towel, wiping that dark paint off. And then the next color I'm going to do is the whites of her eyes. I talked earlier about what color are whites, and they're most certainly not white, right? What color are they? Well, gray. Just about, are they warm gray or cool gray? I'd say more cool than warm, which is a surprise. More bluish than brownish, in other words. Okay, so now I'm painting oops, I missed something. I should have, again, following my own advice, see if I can fit in. I should have painted the pink in the corner of her eye before I did the whites of her eye. Let me see if I can add it after the fact, which is out of order. If you follow me? There, that's probably good enough right there. Let's look at her other eye. Whoops, that was her other eye. Over here. Okay. I better keep track about which eye I'm painting. That would be a mess, wouldn't it? Paint the wrong eye. Okay, so we're over here now. You see, the advantage here is I can come in with this light colored paint, light cool gray, and I'm picking up little bits of that pink and painting into the dark shadow that I just created a minute ago. And it works. Whereas if you do it the other way around, often it doesn't work. Yeah, that's nice. That's nice. And again, when an artist says that's nice like that, he's not bragging. He's celebrating, like, whoo, what a relief. Okay, now this eye here. There we go. Now let's go to the other corner of the eye. It's just about perfect. A perfect gray brown in the inner corner of this eye. So I'm going to mix up some gray brown, which means, in my case, my favorite gray brown is ultramarine blue and oxide red. If you want it warmer, more oxide. If you want it cooler, more ultramarine. Okay, so I'm painting. I already have the darkest shadow part of her eye there is already painted. I'm painting the lower part, that is, her eye is rounded like this. I mean the lower part down here in this corner. Let's look at her other eye now. Ooh, Whoa, very dark. And not only dark, thank goodness for the beauty of the iPhone that's so good for seeing color. There's actually a very purple cast. How many of us would have thought of doing purple in this outer corner of this eye? I would not have thought of it, except now that I blow it up, I go, wow, that's actually purple. So I'm going to paint it purple. A very dull purple. Mauve is the is the technical term for that color. Dull purple, mauve. Okay, now having done that, I think I would be best served just by cleaning off this brush. I mentioned a minute ago about using bristle brushes as much as possible. Let me add to that. This only works if you have some high quality bristle brushes, and my favorites by far, there are no doubt maybe better ones out there, but the silver brush, Silver Grand Prix. You see these, the copper ferrule and the dark green handles, those are silver. More of those than any other brush when it comes to real brushes. I have four categories of favorite brushes. You ready? Number one, for laying in a painting, an underpainting really quickly. My favorite brush is the chip brush, cheapest brush in the world. Second favorite are those long handle things that you see me using all the time when I'm doing landscapes. Then these chip brushes are next most favorite. And then finally, for doing your signature, you need a Winsor Newton Series 7. So there you go. There's the four brushes of my life. I do buy other brushes on occasion, but just to experiment or just to, because they're cheaper sometimes. There, those eyes are looking pretty good. Now, next thing I want to do is, again, working from the furthermost forward. So this eye, I'm trying to decide. Yep, I think I should take a moment right here. I think I should do it right now and paint under this eyelid. Under this eyebrow, I mean, not eyelid, under this eyebrow. Okay? So I'm mixing up a color to match what I see there. And it doesn't take much because the underpainting, if you remember, I already achieved very close to the proper value when I was doing the underpainting. Sorry, forgive me for all the jerking around there. There you go. Maybe you can see a little bit better now. While I've got this color, let's go ahead and go over here. I missed the value right there. Right, that area, I had it as a light area, and it's actually a dark area, so I'll make that correction here. Isn't this fun? This is really, really turning out precious. I'm very happy with this. Need another brush. Let's see if I have another small, medium small, not small enough. But the nice thing, and again, my favorite shape brush by far is Filbert. 90% of my brushes, bristle brushes, are Filbert. And the silver brush makes a long filbert, which most of mine are long. Okay, now let's do the crease above her eyelid. If I can do it with one stroke, I will. Can you see that? A very fine line done with a fairly large brush. It's because of the quality of the brush that I'm able to do that. Some of you, if you were trying to do this with a cheap brush, you'd be just kicking yourself, saying, I don't get it, it doesn't work. How do you make those skinny lines? And let me go ahead and tell you, the answer is good quality brushes. That's how. So don't even try to do this with a cheap brush. It has little hairs going all over all in all different directions. I'm going to add some red to this dark and do the crease underneath her eye right now. It's dark enough already, but it needs to be a little bit warmer. Now, I'm happy to say that my pencil experiment, if you don't know what I'm talking about unless you watched, I think it was part B today. I'm not sure. I think it was part B. I'm happy to say that my little pencil experiment worked quite well. Then there's some tiny little creases underneath her eye in the crease, in the fold, bottom fold of her eyelid. Yeah, in each eye there's a tiny little crease. All right, let me stop here for just a minute. I'm going to turn your camera around because there's something I want to show you, and I want to explain part of the reason. Forgive the earthquake here. Part of the reason why I'm quite insistent in portraiture on this principle of paint what is furthest away from you and move forward is this very reason, is creases or wrinkles in the skin. If you don't, well, let me just say, if you don't know this already, I'm about to say years of frustrating bad portraiture. If you try to paint skin, flesh tone, and then come back, let's say with a skinny little brush like this, and you stick out your tongue, you get the brush, you got a dark paint on it, and you go, and you paint the wrinkle or the crease, it will never work. It will never work. It will always look like you took a dark brush and drew a line on the skin. Just ugly. The way to paint creases or wrinkles is what I just did in her bottom eyelid. So I need to turn you around so I can bring you right up close and see this. So here, how do you paint wrinkles? You put down a dark line first. You paint the crease because it's further away from you, right? A crease is going into the skin. It's not sticking out. Are you with me? It's going in. So you paint the furthermost thing first, the wrinkle that goes away from you. And then you paint the flesh on both sides of that crease. So let me show you. I started it right here. And I want you to get good and close. How close can we get? Okay. So you see this dark line that I just made? Not the big one. I'm talking about the little one that goes at an angle from lower left to upper right. You see that? That does not look, will my camera focus? Almost. That does not look like a crease, like a wrinkle in her skin. It does not. It just doesn't work at all. So what you do, and forgive me for jerking you all over the place, what you do is you put the wrinkle down first, and then you come back and you paint the skin or the flesh on both sides of that wrinkle. Another way to say this is you skinny up or carve up the wrinkle. I need to look at my reference here a little bit. So here's do you see the wrinkle in that photograph? Mine's way too strong, isn't it? That's right. I had to look at the picture to remember what it looked like. Okay, so it's so I'm going to carve it down more. And then I'm going to mix up a little bit of real quick, but just a real slightly lighter version of that to go here and here. Whoops, sorry. I'm looking at what I'm painting, not looking at my screen. There, that's pretty good. Do you see how that looks like come on, get it? That looks quite a bit. I'll work on it yet even a little bit more. Well, hang on, I'll let you, even though I'm giving you a terrible bouncy ride, let me try it again. I'm holding my phone, 3 inches away from my canvas to do this. It'd be real hard to do it without
on a tripod. So because the top part of this flesh right here needs to look like it's catching light from above, right? Get a little bit more of a highlight there. There. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. If you're a struggling portrait painter, that right there might have been worth the price of admission. How to paint creases or wrinkles in a skin. And remember, the principle is you paint what is furthest away and move forward. Okay, let's now continue with these two eyes. How about, is there a crease over here? There is indeed. Oh, and on this one, there's just a tiny little highlight. Oh my goodness. There. Now, let me mention something here real important, because now I'm doing detail. Non-painters, non-artists, or beginner artists often erroneously think, turns out my crease over here is entirely too dark. So I'm going to lighten up the crease, which means I will have to come back and paint around the crease again, because the crease is way too dark. So I'm going to paint around it again lighter. Non-artists and many beginner artists erroneously think that the details in a portrait are the important part, that a likeness, if you will, that it won't look like the person until you get the details. You know, the old horrible thing that most of us artists hate to hear, it looks just like a photograph. Well, some of what I'm doing right now is, you know, approaching photographic detail. But trust me, if you will, the devil is not in the details in portraiture. Quite the opposite. In portraiture, the devil is in the big stuff. Okay? You know that expression, the devil's in the details. Not in portraiture. The opposite is true. The devil is in the big stuff. These details, even though, as you can see, they take time, they take a careful attention to detail. Sorry to use that word twice in that sentence. But they're not hard. What I'm doing right now is easy peasy. Easy. But the hard part of this to each other. Does that make sense? I hope it. The devil is not in the details, and the angels. The beauty is not in the details. The beauty is in the big shapes. It's the big shapes that you have to get right. If you get the big shapes right, then these little details, like I'm doing right now, and it is ironic, because when a non-artist looks at my painting, they will see the details and I'll go, oh, look at those details. It looks just like her. Okay, but I hope you understand that's a non-artist talking. That is not the truth at all. That is not the fact. The fact of the matter is, it is the big stuff that is creating the illusion of reality here, not these tiny little details. But the casual, the non-artistic viewer will in fact fixate, if you will, or focus on the details. They think, non-artists think the glory, not the devil. Non-artists think the beauty is in the details. But as an artist, you need to get over that. No. Quite the opposite. Very much the opposite. The beauty, if you will, is in the big stuff, the likeness. And what I'm doing now is really quite fun, because I've already got a likeness. All right, this already looks like Lakey Poo, as I call her sometimes. So I can have a lot of fun, sure, pleasing the non-artists that will be looking at this painting through the centuries, hopefully. I can please them because my hard work is already done. I already have a likeness. So I can just have some fun doing all these details. It takes a little bit of time, as you can see, but it's quite enjoyable time. Again, partly because there's a great sense of satisfaction. It's like, dang, I nailed the likeness. Okay, so now all this stuff is just fun. And it does, in fact, aid ever so slightly the likeness factor. It does make it look slightly more like her. But again, I want you as artists to understand that the important stuff is not this tiny stuff that I'm doing right now. Okay, there's a slight plummish color, purple, slight purple tint right there. I think probably this broadcast has gone on long enough, maybe too long, as is my wont. I'm having fun, so I hope you are too. But it's time for me now to just continue painting. See me do some details. I will probably, no guarantee, but I will probably come in and do at least one more broadcast this evening. I expect to finish this painting tomorrow with glazes and so forth. When all this is dry. If it's not dry tomorrow, I will postpone that operation until the day after tomorrow. But I expect to come back, and with glazes you can just do tiny shifts of color and value that are hard to do wet in wet. You can do just tiny adjustments using glazes that you can't do wet in wet. Let me get a little bit of this eye done. A little bit of a highlight right on that little bit of her cheek, immediately under this eye crease. And a little bit of glow, not glow, reflection really on that cheek. All right, so I have a lot of work to do still all around here. All these dark areas are not finished, and her eyes are not finished, of course. I need to come in and do, not her, she doesn't have brown eyes, she has greenish hazel eyes. Need to do that, and then of course the reflection as well. And I'm assuming you can see that the reflection on this eye right here is a definite lavender, purple, violet cast to it, right? So this is white, and this is white with going to purple. I will certainly reflect that observation, and then a secondary reflection on our eye right over here. That'll be fun. Again, the details are so much fun once you have the big stuff resolved. The big stuff is settled. Okay, hope that's instructive. Let me see if I missed any comments here before I go. Most people are eating supper, or in my part of the country, or watching Monday Night Football. Nope, no comments. Okay. Thanks so much, guys. Look forward to chatting with you later. Bye-bye.